By the way, this is my first solo show. I'm doing this with me and a cameraman who's making obscene gestures with his breasts. Good fun, good fun. I am the Lizard King.
Look out, he's got a knife, and then you turn to the camera, I have a knife.
The request lines are now open. KTXM Radio is live with the All Request Hour. Now, before we get to it, I have a special announcement. Actually, more of a special segment. It's on video games. Now, we all love video games. Me and myself especially. I can't get enough of them. From RPGs to platformers to action adventures, the only thing I can't really stand is first-person shooters. I'm sorry, just not into it. I'm probably getting a lot of hate mail from this. But, yeah, FPS just does not do it for me. But for me right now, the main point, we're having a disturbing trend of just lackluster titles from every company, more so Nintendo. Not to bash on Nintendo, I mean Nintendo, great system, great company, but right now, personally I think it's dying. Yeah, it's sad to say. I mean, evidence of Amiibo, first of all. They're kind of ripping off Skylanders and Disney Infinity. If they wanted to make a profound effect, and I have, proof in a gaming magazine, and I'll quote off an article for you, let's see, but, Nintendo should be innovating when it clearly isn't, and that's just a sign of the times. Let's see. Let me go through my nondescript gaming magazine here. Ah, bingo. This is from a renowned gaming magazine. I won't name which, because I think that would get me in trouble. So let's see. It says here, Nintendo is enjoying the strong sales of its Amiibo figures, which are flying off the store shelves. It will be touted as a triumph for the company. However, it's a hollow victory that shows a company once known for leading the gaming industry is now following the crowd. Even though this is just an editorial opinion from the magazine, I tend to agree. And speaking of Nintendo's quote-unquote innovations, I really don't get the Wii U gamepad. It just doesn't do it for me. I mean, I've seen, its quote-unquote usefulness, but I'm an old school hardcore gamer. Just give me a controller in my hand any day. I just can't do it. I mean, I like it for Super Smash Brothers, but that's actually the only reason I have a Wii U is because of Super Smash Brothers. I mean, in my mind, that's one of the greatest games out there, greatest fighting games. It's superb. It's fantastic. Although this version doesn't include the fan, which I like to spam so much, but, well, let's just say I've gotten mixed reviews. My girlfriend, she loves it because I don't beat her with it. That sounds absolutely wrong. Let's try that again. My girlfriend likes the non-inclusion of the fan in Smash Brothers because I don't get to spam it, But they're just as equal, hardcore, and unfair weapons. But I'm an old school fan of the fan. And I cannot tell you how many people I've whomped mercilessly with the fan. Good times, man, good times. But I do digress. Anyway, for Nintendo, I feel it's just going downhill, It hasn't really made any great innovations since the Wii, in my opinion. I mean, motion control I thought was a fad, but, it was a successful fad, and, as seen by the sales, I'm half and half on it. I mean, I played Skyward Sword. I gotta say, it was kind of thrilling to actually move the Wiimote and the Nunchuk as Link's swords. But, other than that, nah, just doesn't do it for me. Well, anyway, as I was saying, Nintendo, I think if you see this, first of all, please don't sue, and second of all, change your act a little bit. If Nintendo doesn't clean its act up soon, I think we're going to see the loss of a great company. It's going to be sold or merged with like Sony or Microsoft, and the once great legendary company will be no more. I honestly hate to say, well, not that I don't hate to say it, it's just like, it's going to go the way of Sega. You know, it's going to be third-party developer if this keeps up. I mean, my advice for Nintendo would be, you know, open up yourself more to indies, and this is just for every company in general, not just Nintendo, but Sony and Microsoft. Port more games to the States. Like, there are a lot of great Japanese games that are out there that fanboys would, and fangirls, you know, fanboys and fangirls would froth at the mouth for. Personally, J-Star's Victory Plus or something, I believe is coming to North America soon. And I was like, dude, we're finally getting a decent Japanese game ported to the States, and I hope they give us original Japanese language options with subtitles. But that's their great success, and it's kind of sad that it's a Sony exclusive. Unfortunately, I don't have any Sony products right now. I'm sorry, I'm poor. But, you know, if Nintendo would port more of its popular Japanese games to the States, I think you can see a resurgence of fans, honestly. And also, cash flow, it would probably bail them out of whatever debt they're in. Like I said, that stands for every company, not just Nintendo. Port more games to the States. Aside from that, we're seeing a huge increase on the indie scene as well. And personally, I'm for it. I mean, I love indie games as much as I love, you know, AAA titles. I mean, unfortunately, since I only have a 3DS, you know, I'm limited to the access of what great games are out there. But, you know, while trolling through the eShop, I found a lot of darlings, you know, just diamonds in the rough that deserve critical and commercial acclaim, but aren't really advertised as much. You have to actually go searching through them for the eShop, which is kind of a shame. I mean, every so often they'll, you know, put a good one in the spotlight, but soon after it'll disappear. So, indie titles, good on you. I love them. Keep cranking them out. I mean, there are a lot of good ones. There are a lot of bad ones. Nintendo 3DS seems to have its share of bad ones, but there are some great ones out there too. I can't name names, but I was suckered into buying what was pretty much a Legend of Zelda ripoff. Bad juju, man, bad juju. And as for the AAA developers, I say work with more independent, you know, people, more indie developers, just because you'll get a great product. And speaking of indies, you know, I have actually a quote in another renowned gaming magazine from the great Keiji Inafune himself at, I believe, the 2014 GDC, which is Game Developers Conference. And he says, in older generations, Japanese made things work by being creative, not by being resource rich. I feel that the situation is similar to where we indies are today in Japan. We may work better with restrictions and limitations because when that situation is in front of us, we are very creative. I feel like the indie situation today will push our nation into a much more creative direction. Perhaps we'll find the next Japanese video game creator hero in this era. I feel that there's a small light that will roll into something bigger in the future. I hope we can push that forward. And that's very well spoken, and I tend to agree. Not just, you know, for the nation of Japan, but for America as well. And I think major developers should take that in consideration. That was supposed to be on Vibrate. I think if AAA developers, you know, put more restrictions on themselves, they can find better solutions by being more creative. I think that's what we lack right now in the scene. Creativity. I mean, how many Battlefields are there? Calls of Duty and you know, Halos and, you know, whatever the heck. I mean, not to say that it's all bad, but you know, and you know, you're probably thinking I'm working on my bias of FPSs, but I'm not. But it just seems that there's, you know, a lack of creativity. It's said that every story's been done, every idea has been taken, but you know, while I agree with that in some extent, I think we can still be original and more creative. Like I said, this circles back to me and my idea of the coming Renaissance, but if we borrow from more mediums, you know, and not just borrow, but create more of our own, I think we can have the next great hero, and not just limited to any one nation, you know. The story, the hero, you know, belongs to us all, and I'm a firm believer that there's a hero in all of us. I know I'm getting sappy and sentimental, but, you know, I think the potentiality of the human mind is limitless, you know. There are no bounds, and it doesn't really depend on the technology per se. I think it just depends on us and how creative we're willing to be, you know. If there's an obstacle, you can always work your way around it, you know. And this doesn't just apply to video games and stories and heroes and such. This applies to everyday life, you know. But back on the subject of video games, as I was saying, you know, right now in the last couple of years, we've seen a huge surgence of indie developers, and like I said, I'm a fan of that. And I'm liking to see where more of it goes, but at the same time, I'd like AAA developers to match that creativity or even pick up on that. I mean, I know I might be hung for my statements here, and you know, this is just my opinion, keep in mind, but I think if AAA developers and indie developers work together, we can have something beautiful, you know. There's a lot going on with like Project Morpheus and the Oculus VR, pushing the limits and human boundaries into the future of VR, and I'm excited. I can't wait to see what happens, but you know, there's also at the back of my mind something that worries me, that it can go awry, you know. For those of you who know anime, you've seen Sword Art Online, no doubt, and it's just, I'm wondering if it's going to be one of those situations where we'll be trapped in a virtual world, and, you know, when we die for good, or something similar to that. I know it seems far-fetched, but I'm always the dreamer, and I think that's also a possibility. Just worries me, all told. Now, shout out your favorite video game here. Mine is Sonic, and you are all aware of this, and I can't help it. Sonic was good. Keyword was, I mean, Sonic 06 and the new one, Sonic Boom, just, yeah, I hang my head in shame. Just why Sega? So if, I know Sega's kind of dead and gone, it's now a third-party publisher, but, you know, revitalize your flagship franchise, like, revitalize Sonic, put some effort into it. I mean, what with Sonic Lost World, there was like 15 minutes worth of cutscenes. What kind of stuff is that, man? Like, go back to Sonic Adventure, you know, go back to the drawing board. Sonic Adventure, arguably the greatest Sonic game out there. I say arguably because there are some who say Sonic Adventure 2. Tomato, but I like Sonic Adventure, the first one. So go back to that. Great story, great gameplay. I mean, sure, heavy on the characters. Still okay, you know, still really good. And I love the music. The music was killer. You know, I personally think that the first soundtrack was better than the second one. But again, you know, matter of opinion. But I think if Sega, you know, wants to, you know, be a little bit more successful, focus on the franchises that made it popular, revitalize them, you know, take them back to their roots. Like, the reason I fell in love with Sonic the Hedgehog was back when I was a wee kidlin. I played Sonic the Hedgehog. I was like, dude, this is amazing. This guy's going fast as all get out. And collecting rings and the challenging Chaos Emerald stages. Oh, man, I had a blast. And that's what got me hooked, just the unparalleled speed of it. And the music. The music was killer. And then there's also the series Nights. I recommend doing something with that. At least release an HD collection, you know, at the very least. And re-release Christmas Nights into HD too. But revitalize, you know, put more life into your franchises, into your popular ones. For Nintendo, I'd say it needs a structural overhaul. You know, I'm not saying get rid of the president or anything, but, you know, go back again to your roots of what made you successful, you know. Be innovative. Take more risks. Because it seems to me these days Nintendo's a little bit risk-adverse. Like I said earlier in the show, like with the copying of the Amiibo, you know, they were doing what Skylanders and Disney Infinity had already done. So I think if it wants to be more successful, and it's also said in that article, Nintendo needs to kind of jump in feet first or head first or however you like it, and bring more innovations. Like I said, I think the Wii U is kind of the nail in the coffin. And on the 3DS, I mean, it's great for me because, you know, I'm working most times, and I don't really have time to play a full-fledged game. But, you know, when I do, it's like, I want a full-fledged game. It's like, a lot of games on the 3DS are, like, notoriously short, which is a shame because some of them are, like, really great. Case in point, Fantasy Life. I loved it. I'd give it an 8 out of 10, honestly, but it really falls short. I mean, the gameplay itself, you can go through the main storyline without so much as killing anything. And where it shines is the multiplayer. and I love that aspect. But it's again cut too short. I'd like to see a sequel or maybe a redo of Fantasy Life. Just make it on an epic scale. I know I'm crazy and I'm a dreamer, but I'd like to see an MMO for the 3DS or a handheld system or a system in general. I think they might have done that to some extent, but I'd like to see it more bigger, grander, just well done. And like I said, I know I'm crazy for wanting a handheld MMO because we don't have the technology, but I think it's all possible. I think it can be done, and I'd go into a long dissertation of how and why it can be done. But I don't think I have the time. But at least for handheld games, for the 3DS, make them longer. There are a few good ones out there that are pretty lengthy, but like I said, they're few and far between. And also, the whole reason I got a 3DS is because Mega Man Legends 3, which they canceled shortly after I got one. I was like, dude, WTF, I purchased this 3DS for Mega Man Legends 3 Capcom 4K, but that's dead and over. I mean, I'm kind of beating on a dead horse. Everyone has mourned and lamented the loss of Mega Man, and there's Mighty Number 9 coming out, but I just beg Capcom, give it back to Inafune. Like, seriously, give Mega Man back. It's his. Just, he'll know what to do with it, and he'll make you a lot of money if you can meet him halfway. But again, I digress. I'd like to see longer handheld games, especially for the 3DS. Not so much as indie titles. I mean, I like them. I'm not saying anything bad against indie developers or indie games. They're pretty good. There are a lot of great ones out there if you know what you're looking for. But I'd like to see more team-ups, and I'd like to see just longer titles and maybe a better handheld system, like for Nintendo and Sony. I mean, the Vita's doing great, but it's kind of a lot expensive. I mean, so is the 3DS, but the 3DS, kind of a touchy subject for me as well. I mean, I like it, it's great, but at the same time, it leaves a lot to be desired, and, I think it could be done better, and that's why I said earlier, Nintendo, kind of go back to your roots. I mean, 3D is great, but it's kind of a novelty. Do something for hardcore gamers. Do something for your hardcore fans. And that just goes to everyone in the game industry. Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo. Cater to your hardcore fans. That's where your money is. Bring more ports to the States. There are a lot of, like I said, a lot of great Japanese titles out there that are just waiting, that fans are waiting for. And if you can't do that, at least make your system's boundaries free. Like, that's one of the things, again, that pisses me off about the 3DS. It's like, on the old systems, you could play Japanese games great, but now you can't do it. And it's like, what the heck? I mean, if you're not going to port the games to the States, at least give us the satisfaction of playing the Japanese version. But, again, I don't want to go on a rant here. But, more or less just cater to us fans. I mean, fans is a loose term. I mean, there are a lot of fans in between from casual to hardcore, and I know it's hard to cater to each and every one of us, but, I know you tend to go with the majority of the demand, but sometimes listen to the smaller group, the minority group of players. Like, if it were up to me, I'd let the fans be in charge. I'd let us, say, pick what games we want. Of course, I'm an idealist, and I know it can go wrong, but still, like, if you put, like, a fan in charge, or at least someone who knows about the series that you're making, you'd have great success. And I know I circled back to that from my last topic, which was movies going horribly, or adaptations of film going awry. But put the fans in charge. I'd say invest in like a small group of fans. I know they have playtesters, which is great. They have a say to some extent of how the game's going to turn out. But I'd invest more in that. And as for the whole video games, let me into E3. This is just for E3 in general. Make it back for the fans. Back in the day when I was in high school, when I first learned about E3, I said, dude, this is awesome, I gotta go to this. And then, shortly after, you made it for industry only, and I'm like, what the heck? And, I can't say, but, E3 is like the wonderland for me. Like, I hope to see it in all its glory, so if anyone's watching this who has access to E3, please give me a couple tickets, pretty please. I'll put you on the show. I'll buy you dinner. That sounds kind of wrong, but I'm still going with that. But anyway, just about wraps up my rant for today. Thank you for listening to my rant about video games and video game companies. I'm sorry if anyone was offended, especially Nintendo, but I'm sorry. My last word of advice, like I said, just my whole point of the show is kind of Nintendo, get your act together. You know, just I believe in you. I don't want to see you go the way of Sega and the dinosaurs. But anyway, thanks for catching my rant. Thank you for watching me. Thank you for supporting me. It means all the world to me. If you have any questions, just drop me a line at Facebook, Twitter, or Tumblr. I'll answer them on my next show. Other than that, thanks for the support. Love y'all. Y'all have a good night. Cheers.
Go.
I think I just broke my jump. It's a pretty day today. Hey, you know what? We should get a rose in my mouth. That's what we should do. It's me laying here with a rose in my mouth. Quick, someone get me a flower. I can't move because I think I broke my genitals.
Alright. I'm just gonna keep recording till you get up, so then it stops being entertaining. Oh no, I'm gonna stop recording.